Hello, you're watching Tell It Like It Is, and my name is Kathy Benuck. Well, sitting beside me today, you can see a familiar face. We did a show just a few weeks ago. This is Andrew Hemingway. And at the time he was a guest here, it was before the state Republican committee meeting. And he was one of two candidates who was vying to be the Republican chair. And I got to tell you, that day I announced him as a rising star in New Hampshire politics and actually national as well because of some of his involvements. And there's absolutely no question that he is a rising star, and which is one of the reasons why I intend to have Andrew back pretty often for Tell It Like It Is shows because he's good at telling it like it is. Well, anyway, the Republican convention did happen, and by only 30 votes did he lose. Which is kind of extraordinary, quite frankly, because the person that he was running against, the winner, has been around in New Hampshire Republican politics for a very long time and has been a candidate and everything else. So Andrew coming in that close speaks certainly to the fact that, as I said, he's a rising star in New Hampshire. Now, just so any of you out there won't say that, oh, Kathy's being biased, I do want you to know that I have invited Jennifer Hahn, who is the Republican chair now, to be a guest on the show. And I've also invited Ray Buckley, who, as you probably know, especially if you're a Democrat, is chairman of the New Hampshire Democratic Party. And definitely invited both of them to come on, either together or separately, doesn't matter to me, but certainly so that they could have the opportunity to let you know their view on all kinds of things, including what's going on in state government these days with legislation and such. So the invitation was out there, but like anything else, I can't kidnap people and bring them into the studio. So whether or not they will be guests or not, don't know. If they are, you'll certainly see them here. But meanwhile, Andrew's here.
I'm here.
He
Yes.
is here. And look at this. You all know I use index cards, to try to keep myself under control and my thought process running and remember the questions that I want to ask. Look at this. They're all blank, which means this is a free-for-all. We can talk about whatever we want. So there's no telling what direction we'll go in. But I think if you stick around, you'll probably find it gets interesting.
Yes.
Yes. So now that convention is over,
Yes.
I'm imagining that you must be glad.
Yeah. Of course. I mean, it's the nice thing about it was that it was a good race.
Yes. Yeah.
It was competitive. We had, both of us had very strong bases of support. We were able to challenge each other on ideas, and I think we both improved through the process. And I think ultimately the party was better for it. I mean, I know a lot of people were really concerned about party unity and making sure that everyone was on the same page and all this stuff. And I mean, I definitely think that that's very important. But I think that primaries help with that. I really think that people go, okay, at least we had a choice. At least we were able to voice our opinion. And now that it's done, we're moving forward. I feel like the party is in a very good place, very strong position, and we're moving forward. And there's a lot of exciting things. I mean, I guess exciting depending on how you look at it, happening in Concord right now. And I think that Jennifer's been doing a very good job of keeping us informed of what's happening and trying to push the Republican message.
Well, as you probably remember, the day of the vote, I was more than a little disgruntled that they wouldn't give out the voting results.
Yes.
And exchanged words with the outgoing chairman as well as a couple of other people, because to me, when I was told, oh, well, it's for unity purposes, I thought that was a lot of bunkus.
Yeah.
I mean, what has disclosing the voting numbers got to do with unity? And I did kind of blog on that and fired up a few people with my blog.
I mean, so when we were there, they told Jennifer and I the number, and they said this is what the result was, and I opted to cast one vote, in favor,
Yes,
to have
you
the record
did.
show
Yeah,
one
you were
vote.
very gracious.
And they said, oh, this is something that we keep private. I mean, so I just was okay. I mean, I didn't suspect any sort of conspiracy or anything. I just said, okay,
Oh, I didn't
that's
like
their
it.
policy.
I didn't like
I
it.
don't blame you. I mean, if I was press or blogging or whatever, I mean, I would have wanted to know too. So
Well, I mean, as you notice, you know, I managed to find out what the
Yes, you
numbers
did.
were, and I did indeed put them in my blog the next day.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think that it's wrong to show the numbers.
Of course it's not.
I don't feel like there was anything, you know. So I'm happy that, you know, it's out, and I'm happy that people knew that it was a competitive race, and I'm really happy that, you know, I think the party's moving forward, and I think we're on a good path.
I hope it is, because I'll be honest with you, and I said so in the blog, so I'm not like all of a sudden, you know, rattling sabers here saying it, but I was very concerned that day because, you know, there were some antics going on that I did not think were very good. I mean, when one of the existing party leaders got up and was carrying on about another blogger who
Yeah.
had made points that he didn't like to hear and kind of called them down and yada yada yada.
Yes.
I mean, I thought the whole thing was kind of ludicrous. You know, I mean, he was supposed to be getting
Well-
up giving a report, and instead he's giving a rant against a person,
Look,
and that was very personal, quite frankly.
It's kind of like town meeting, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we're coming into March.
Yeah.
A lot of towns are going to have town meeting. And, you know, there's always somebody at town meeting
Yeah.
that everybody knows who gets up and says something. Everybody just kind of goes like, okay, okay. Well, look, I mean, that was our town meeting in a sense. And there's always somebody that everybody knows, and you just kind of say, hey, like, we're all part of the family, and
Well, that'd be one
we
thing
all have a
if-
crazy uncle.
That would, yeah, but that would have been one thing if the crazy uncle went down to the microphone, you know, that was out in the audience to make a comment. But this was one of the party leaders who was at the podium for a specific purpose to give us a specific report.
Yes.
And kind of, I don't remember much about the report, but I sure as heck remember the craziness that was going on
Yes.
up in stage and comments that he was making that elicited boos from the audience and
Yes.
such. And I was not impressed, I mean, frankly. And that's the first Republican committee meeting that I was
Right.
ever at
Right.
as a delegate.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, you know, I got home and I said to my husband, who of course wasn't there because he wasn't a delegate,
Right.
I said to him, I said, wow, I said, you know, if I went to one or two more meetings like that, I'd probably go over and sign up as a Democrat.
No, I know.
Because I was so totally turned off by it.
Right.
So, you know, and the other thing that I mentioned in my blog is just sitting there, I could kind of see the old standby element over here,
Yeah.
and then the newer, younger element, like yourself,
Yes.
over here.
Yes.
And there didn't seem to be much intermingling going on.
Well,
And I kind of think that's one of the problems, one of the reasons why the Republicans lost so many races this year, is because I think sometimes the older,
yeah.
maybe the wrong word, older. I mean, I don't mean to. I don't mean that to sound like everybody's ancient, but the ones who have been around a while, the established,
The establishment.
aren't too good at accepting new ideas. And unless some new ideas and some new ways of thinking are incorporated,
I
then
think
the losses will continue.
I think it's twofold. I think that, you know, obviously the Republican Party and their methods and, you know, the people who have been involved for a long, long time have a tremendous amount of value
Sure they do.
to pushing our principles forward as a party.
Sure.
That being said, I also think that there's a tremendous amount of value in some, you know, new ideas, and
Yes.
some fresh blood, and
Yes.
some sort of a fresh perspective.
The world has changed.
Those two have to be able to meld together and work together. One with respect of, hey, this is how things have been done for a long time, and they've worked, and this is why we've been successful. And you go, okay, great, like, let's do that. But can we make those efforts improved by maybe looking at it in a little bit of a different perspective? And that ultimately is how, you know, unity and ultimately leadership is going to be accomplished. That was one of the things that I said during the race, and I think Jennifer is trying to do this now, which is to say, look, everybody has to come and sit down at the table. We've got to find that one piece of common ground among all of us. What is it, the one thing that we all are agreeing on? And let's start there. Let's build on that, you know, platform. It may be a 2x4, or it may be a, you know, a deck. I don't know how big this is, but let's find those things, and then let's start to just add on top of those things.
And then, of course, the other portion of it, too, is, you know, it wasn't that long ago that emails and e-newsletters
Right.
and all of those things, or online fundraising and
Yeah.
such, wasn't even heard of, wasn't part of campaigns.
Right.
and it certainly is a huge element to campaigns now.
Yes.
And I think the Republicans failed at it this year.
Well, it's a huge element in Democrat campaigns. I mean, I think that, like Democrats are very good at using the newer technologies
Yes.
because
Yes.
they've said, okay, like let's see what else is
Yes.
out there. I mean, there's a part of the Republican Party at the state and national level which is being controlled by consultants who make a lot of money doing TV and doing direct mail. And it's very hard for consultants to figure out how to get a cut of the action when they're doing Facebook and Twitter and emails. Like they're trying to figure out how do we get a cut of this, because they can't price it like they price TV. The inventory online is very structured, and they're not going to be able to go in and negotiate with Google like they're negotiating with WMUR. There's not the markups. So consultants have less incentive because of their cuts, which are always taken on the back, to be able to work, up front. This is why one of the things that Obama did in his campaign, which was he used very, very few consultants. It was almost all in-house. And everybody said, oh, wow, he had so much staff, so much, because he got rid of all these consultants who were all taking hits on the back anyways.
Yeah.
This, when a consultant says to you, hey, we'll do this direct mail piece, they're also getting a commission from the person that they're sending it to print.
Yeah, that's true too.
They get a cut on all of that.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, that's money that you're not being able to use for your campaign.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
So they say, oh, we'll do robocalls for you. Well, their price is 2 cents. They're selling it for 8 cents, and they're just taking little cuts in the back. I'm in this business, right? I mean, I offer services to politicians, so I totally understand this. But there are things that are way more profitable than other things just by their very nature that you're able to mess around with the pricing of them. And we have a culture in the Republican Party right now which is being controlled by these individuals who are able to do these things. Direct mail and TV, two very, very big areas. I think we need more competition, and I think we need a different way of running these campaigns. Beyond that, digital and doing things online now, and this level of micro-targeting, you're just not able to do that in using traditional media. I mean, there's a place for traditional media in today's campaign. Of course, yeah. But a lot of that is being driven by new media, and Republicans really have to come to a point where they go, look, we just need to embrace this, like whole hog. We don't care. Like we have to embrace it. We have to become better than the Democrats at using these mediums. And when you look at the results, I mean, especially here in New Hampshire, Romney didn't do that poorly.
No, he didn't.
I mean, it wasn't that bad.
No.
And we did everything wrong. I mean, literally. Like we were doing. There was very, very few things that you can point at that the victory or the New Hampshire GOP campaign efforts did right. Very, very few things.
Amazing.
So if we just do a little bit of these things better, just a few of these things better, we could retain, or take back control of the House, retain the Senate, have a shot at the governor's seat. Like I think that there's a lot of opportunity. That's why I was, running for chair. That's why I'm still staying involved. That's why I'm still active, because I'm saying everybody feels like, oh, we lost by so much, it was devastating, blah, blah. I understand that, but if we just do a couple of things right.
That's right.
If we did everything right and we still lost, that's a totally different situation. We did everything wrong. So I think that there's hope. I think that there's opportunity here. And it all comes from the premise of, I believe that when a Republican's leading the state, when we're being led by Republicans who are legislating like Republicans, we're a better state. Everybody prospers from that.
Well, unless the old guard Republicans also recognize that unless they start taking advantage of the new online media and such, they're missing a whole element of the voting public.
Yes.
Because, under a certain age, and you could probably define about what age, but unless you're doing things online and communicating that way that they can, see it on their smartphones or whatever, they're not even hearing you.
No, that's right. There's right. They're using DVR to watch TV now, so they're fast forwarding through commercials. Yep. They're watching, their TV shows on their iPads or online, which campaigns aren't having access to. There's so much now that's being done simply through social media and digital media.
Yeah.
I mean, even
Exactly.
into the baby boomers. I mean, it's one of the largest trends is for baby boomers to have an iPad and to sit in bed at night and scroll through the news or watch some videos or something like that. I mean, that's what's happening now. So we need to adapt to this new platform, to this new way. And
to me, it seems like there's resistance from
well,
the old guard.
see, and I don't know if it's resistance as much as it is.
Fear?
It's a little bit of fear, but it's also saying you're asking a select few people who have worked their way up into power, doing certain specific things, to say, listen, the way that you're doing these things right now, the way that you've come into power and been successful, is now broken, and so you need to change. And I mean, people don't like to change. People don't like to change.
But I mean, nobody's saying to them to give up all their methods.
No.
Because some of them will always be needed and will always be successful. But to rely on them totally is hugely wrong.
And this is why, what I was saying before is that we have a culture that supports these consultants, and they're not willing to take a pay cut.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna end up doing the same things over and over again. I do think that there is some change coming. I do think that this loss, especially the Romney loss, shook a lot of people to the point where they go okay, let's try and figure out how we do this. I think it's funny that the people that they're going to are the same people that just lost this race for them. I mean, I think that's sort of, but that's politics.
And I think the thing that bothers me is I'm hearing a lot of rah-rah speeches about we need to change and we have to move with the times. But even at the state meeting, I wasn't hearing specific ideas from people, and that was of great concern to me.
I mean,
because at this point in time, there needs to be specific ideas, not just general yada yada.
No, there absolutely has to be a change in the way that we do this. And I think that using technology to be more effective at the grassroots organizing. And ultimately, that's what technology is allowing us to do, is allowing us to push a message from the bottom, from the grassroots, be more effective at organizing and communicating and delivering a message from the bottom up. And that just kind of runs contrary to the way Republicans have been acting for a long time.
I know. And which is one of the reasons why people who don't like Republicans call them all kinds of names, including the old fuddy-duddy white old men's club,
Yes, that's true.
Let me throw a question at you that, I'll probably get in trouble, and maybe you'll say, she should not have asked me that, but I have to do it anyway.
Okay.
We all know that in the past week, and by the time people, see the show on TV, they'll see it very quickly on YouTube, but by the time they see it on TV, it'll be like a couple of weeks before that I'm referring to. But we all know that in the past few days, Governor Hassan did, of course, present her budget.
Yes.
And we all know that that's always known as that House Bill 1. And then the House Bill 2 is the explanation of that budget.
Yeah.
And I guess some governors submit them both at the same time. Some governors don't because it's a little more involved with explanation. And there is kind of a target date that supposedly by February 15th they're supposed to have that done.
Right.
I don't know that all governors have conformed to that. And to me, it's not a real big deal if it's a couple of days afterwards. I mean, this is not earth-shattering what day they actually submit that paperwork.
Right.
Excuse me, but our new Republican chairman, Jennifer Hahn, has made kind of a huge to-do over it, going so far as to file a letter of complaint with the state's Attorney General's office.
Yeah.
And what kind of bothered me, too, about the letter was at the end of it, she was kind of going on and on that she recognized that he was up for reappointment this year and that, gee, if he took a stand against the governor, maybe that would jeopardize his reappointment, but she wanted him to know that everybody would still, think that he should be reappointed, kind of mixing the two things in, which I thought was, really wrong.
Yeah.
But in any event, I mean, to me it was kind of, the classic saber rattling over not much of an issue. And I think it hurt her and the party credibility. That's my personal opinion.
Right.
The question you probably don't want to hear that I'm going to ask is, what's your take on it?
I think that, I don't know if it's a tack that, past chairman would have taken. I think that she is in a position where people want to see her be very vocal, and they want to see her be out there. And so
But
I
you have
think
to be
that,
selective on what you're vocal
you
about.
know, yeah. And so I don't blame her for going out there and doing that. I mean, I think that it's important to highlight that this is happening. I agree with you to a degree to say that this is pretty standard fare, and this is what governors do, and I don't really think it's that big of a deal, and it's lost on the general public. And my thing is that there really isn't a really I'm not seeing a real positive Republican message coming out.
Well, exactly. That's kind of my point.
And I think we're ready for a positive message. I think we're ready for that. But at the same time, I don't blame her going after Hassan. I mean, look, she's the figurehead of the Democrats at this point, and I think that she really has to go after her however she can, and this is just kind of her strategic decision to go after her. Sometimes,
but wouldn't it have been better to maybe pick out particular points of the budget that the Republican Party would oppose rather than to kind of nitpick on a technicality of paperwork?
I think she has a little
filing.
Bit. I mean, there's definitely a lot in this budget that I think you can go after. I mean, and she has.
Agree.
Jennifer definitely has gone after certain pieces of it. We should talk about, Governor Hassan including gambling revenue in this budget. Just how unrealistic that is. So
I think even some Democrats are having a problem probably with that.
Yes. My opinion is she has to do what she has to do, and so she's out there trying to stir things up. And sometimes, from a political perspective, you just throw some stuff out there and see what sticks.
Well, but don't you think that kind of left her wide open for criticism that indeed did immediately come back fired at her?
Well, I think that any chairman in any position is going to get fired back at. So I think there's going to be a lot of.
But sometimes sometimes you can be a lightning rod for it.
Yeah. And I would say I'd rather have the chairman being hit than our elected officials being hit.
Well,
so part of her job is to kind of take.
All right.
The heat.
Part two of my question then that you're going to hate me for is it what you would have done?
I honestly cannot say what I would have done in that
Andrew,
situation.
not true. I know you well enough to know you would have a strong opinion on this.
I don't know what I would do.
This is tell it like it is, Andrew.
I know. I don't know. I don't think I would have filed a complaint with this,
the AG.
The AG, but I don't.
Well, it seems kind of draconian to me.
Yeah, but
I
don't have a problem.
Not much chance of a good result. That's kind of the way I read it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, all right. You're trying to be a good guy.
I am. I'm trying to make friends.
Well, I know, and you have to be a loyal Republican more than I have to be a loyal Republican.
That's right.
I can be a Republican pain in the butt if I want to be.
That's right.
All right. So the big news, obviously, is what's going on up at the State House.
Right.
What issue troubles you the most? Well, obviously, the budget's going to, but is there a particular issue that troubles you the most?
Every single day there's another issue that's right?
This is true.
So they're trying to raise the gas tax by 15 cents a gallon.
That's a lot of money.
This is what Democrats do.
Yeah,
this is the problem, is that as Maggie Hassan's preparing this budget, Democrats are saying, okay, we've made this promise to this union, we've made this promise to this group, we've made this promise to them, to this. Okay, so we've gotten into power now because we've promised a lot of things to a lot of people. Now, we also, while we were getting into power, promised we wouldn't pass a broad-based tax like a sales or an income tax. She promised that.
Right, yeah, she did. Yeah.
So, she's tied. Her hands are tied. This is why someone like Jackie Silly says, I'm not going to take that pledge because we have to make pledges, we have to make these promises to get into power. And once we get there, we're handicapped because one of the promises is that we're not going to pass a broad-based tax. So Maggie now has to look at the scenario and say, okay, we need revenue to pay for all these promises that I've made to all these groups. So how do we find the revenue without going with a broad-based tax? So there's only a certain number of areas that she can go to. Well, David Campbell, state rep, this week we saw some of his emails. He said,
"Oh, gift that keeps on giving.
Gas tax is a gift that keeps on giving." But where's that money coming from?
From you and me.
That's right. 15 cents a gallon. I just paid $3.75. we are, to a large degree, a commuter state.
Yes, we certainly are.
We have to drive places to get to where we're going. So
for the most part, we have to drive almost everywhere.
yes, and so they're going to start levying. This is just a really very regressive tax. I understand the idea of we've got to catch up with all the roads and stuff like that. But look, a study was just released this week. New Hampshire is right on par with all the other states. We're right in the middle of that group there. Yes, there are roads that need some help, and yes, we need to get some funding back in there. But if our governors would stop raiding the highway fund and use that money for what it's there for.
And that's what bothers
So
me,
the
because this
solution
bill
is-
allows money to go to fish and wildlife.
Yes.
And, I mean, what's that got to do with highways and bridges?
The solution is, if someone's taking money out of a certain fund, the solution is not to put more money in that fund.
Yeah.
Right? The solution is to say, let's pass legislation that mandates that this money can only be used for highways and roads, for infrastructure. We can only use this money for this purposes.
Yeah.
And tell all these other sticky-fingered legislators to stay away. Why would we say, oh, they're taking all of our money at $10, so let's put in 20? Well, no, they're going to take 20, right? I mean, this is just common sense. So the legislation that he's trying to pass,
Give it away and they'll come.
that's right. It should say, let's mandate what this money can be used for. There are ideas so they're going to try and raise the gas tax. They're talking about raising the cigarette tax.
Yes.
They tried to raise the beer tax.
Yep.
They're trying to find
That one's done though, right?
all these
The beer
little-
tax?
Yep, the
That's
beer tax
over.
was killed.
Yeah.
They're trying to find all these little areas to say, what can we tax to get revenue? Well, I don't think we have a revenue problem.
Spending problem.
It's a spending problem.
It is.
When you look at a budget, for some reason, when people go to Concord, legislators go to Concord, they immediately, their mind becomes dyslexic and they start to say, well, what are we going to spend, then find the revenue? Instead of at home or a business where they go, what's our revenue? Here's what we can spend.
Right.
They become dyslexic. It's an amazing thing. So why can't we look at, what is the revenue? What is a realistic revenue projection? And what is our expenses, and try and figure out a way to make that work. No, instead, they say, we're going to spend this much, and we'll just tax people.
Well, and then
easy.
the other, with the governor's budget, having such a huge chunk of it dependent on gambling that hasn't even been approved yet,
This really is something,
it is kind of mind-boggling.
it's unbelievable that an enormous portion of this budget,
Yes.
millions, I mean, we're talking, I think, $80 million, I
Yes.
think, of the biennium,
Yes.
is all based upon, predicated upon a piece of legislation that hasn't even passed yet. I think what that does is it puts legislators in a very, very difficult position.
Of course it does.
And
Particularly Democrats. I mean,
puts them in a-
truth be told,
Oh, well, yeah.
because, are they going to come out in a swarm against their governor?
Right.
I would suspect not.
so you're asking, legislators now to basically forego, really even having a choice to have a real debate about whether gambling's good for New Hampshire or not, on all the different levels that the debate should occur on, to say, look, you're a Democrat, you want Democrats to do good, you have to vote for this
For the
bill.
bill.
And it's their way of lobbying. Now, Governor Hassan is been backed by the unions in a big way, and I'm not going to bash the unions, all the unions. 'Cause
Right.
I think that there's a valid place for them, and I think that there's they do a lot of very good things for the workers in the state of New Hampshire. That being said, a lot of times their union bosses get into situations with politicians, and specifically with Governor Hassan, where there are backroom deals made that ultimately promises have to be kept, and it forces our legislators, our elected officials, to be more concerned about representing and keeping their promises to a select little group of power elite than the actual people.
Yeah.
And gambling is one of those situations.
Yeah, it is.
Gambling deserves to have a long, lengthy debate. And people go, oh, it comes up every 2 years and we have this. It's fine. I feel like we're making progress on this. This is a huge decision for our state.
Yes, it
Let
is.
it go through several different House cycles. Let it go through many different Senate cycles. It doesn't have to be forced through in one 6-month period. Let's have a lengthy debate over several years. Why not? Why are we all of a sudden trying to force this down people's throats? And so I think that she's making a very big mistake by putting her campaign
surprised me.
promises ahead of this situation. And I think it's an enormous risk because ultimately
It's kind of like the whole house of cards could just fall down.
I mean, if you take $80 million out of this budget in revenue, it's gone. The other thing that I think is interesting is her projections of $40 million in gambling fees in the first year. Other states who have put into gambling have not seen revenue generated from gambling, even as far as licensing fees, for 3, 4, or 5 years. It's very unrealistic that she's going to generate $40 million.
In the first year.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it is unrealistic.
So like she did when she was in the Senate, we're going to be left with a huge deficit. I mean, that's what's going to happen. There's no way around an enormous deficit, which, Republican-held House with Bill O'Brien as Speaker, as much as people, maybe don't like him, we balanced the budget. And we put forward a budget which ended up reducing a lot of that deficit. We didn't pass any down to the, new taxes. We didn't pass anything down to the towns or to the counties or whatever. So all of a sudden, we're going to be in a situation where the state's going to say, okay, well, we're short $40 million. So now not only have they tried to tax everything possible, now they're short $40 million. Where does that $40 million come from? I think they raise the business profits tax. I think they go after the business profits tax because it's easy for them to say, we can raise this a couple points. Business owners it's just the way it is, You're the only group of people left that we can come after without, massive backlash. So we're going to, try and raise the BPT.
Well, it also seems as though, obviously Bill O'Brien has been demonized.
Of course.
To a very high degree. And yes, in fact, somebody said to me the other day, oh my God, he's so obnoxious. He's this, he's that, is the other thing. And, obviously he ran a tight ship as the House Speaker, a Republican House Speaker up there. He certainly ran a tight ship in trying to keep Republicans in line. But it's kind of interesting that he's so demonized because on a personal level, he's a very nice man. He's very pleasant.
Yeah.
He's very low-key.
Well, this is something that you should bring up.
He's a very calm person to talk with and everything. He doesn't come off like this screaming, crazy person that some newspapers would have you believe he is.
You should bring this up with Ray Buckley. And
I would like to. Yeah.
And I think you should ask him about it. There was a decision made by the Democrats early on. A very classic campaign or, political maneuver is to, find sort of the boogeyman. And you've got to find somebody.
Well, they've certainly made O'Brien the boogeyman.
Yes, and it was very effective for them.
Yeah.
They used that in every single campaign speech. Every single Democrat candidate was out there talking about Bill O'Brien and the Tea Party. Bill O'Brien and the Tea Party. Bill O'Brien and the Tea Party.
Yeah.
Have you seen a Tea Party in New Hampshire for the last 2 years?
I have not.
I haven't seen any. This is ridiculous.
I remember a couple of years ago they had a couple of rallies.
Right.
I really haven't seen any sign of them
They
since.
have villainized them, and it was successful on their part. You have to go okay, fine, we get what they did. It's unfortunate for Bill O'Brien that he has that reputation, but
it doesn't seem to bother him, though. He's staying involved, and
he should. He should say that's
the course
ridiculous.
of his beliefs.
Look, to think that you're gonna be able to lead 400 essentially volunteer state representatives, people who all 400 of those individuals are strong, headstrong individuals who all think that they know which one's the best way to do it.
Absolutely.
And to try and get what he got accomplished in 2 years is really a remarkable feat. And do you think that we're going to be able to do that without having a strong, charismatic leader who, at times says, guys, get on board. It's time. We have to make a decision, and we're going to get on board. Right. And what we hear is the story of the rep who's like, he yelled at me. I got my feelings hurt. Right? That's what we hear.
I know that.
Well, look, I'd rather have someone who's in there who's going to get something done.
Yeah.
And
as I would too.
Maybe at some point you've got to step on some toes. That's part of leadership. That's part of what this is. Could he have done some PR, and could he have done some messaging, and could he have worked to soften his message a little more? Yes. I think everybody agrees that there probably could have been some more things done on that. Was he perfect? No, he was not perfect.
But nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect. When you look at what he was able to accomplish, when you look at what he said he was going to do as Speaker and what he did, I think it's a remarkable feat, and I have nothing but respect and admiration for him.
And it almost seems as though so much of this year's legislative activity is aimed at trying to reverse those things that he did take a leadership position on. And which kind of brings to mind something that obviously, again, has been in the news lately, and I don't know, maybe it'll be decided by the time people see this show on television rather than on YouTube. but the whole tuition tax credit
Yes.
for small businesses making voluntary contributions. I said that wrong. The business tax credit for voluntary contributions to scholarship
Yes,
programs.
through a scholarship program, right?
And in fact, I just did a show on that with proponents and supporters of that just about a week ago.
Right.
And to me, what I'm watching is kind of appalling, which is one of the reasons I wanted to do a show. Because, I mean, the bill, it hardly took effect. It only took effect in January. And before it even took effect, there was legislation filed to repeal it.
Yes.
And I think it's safe to say that all the arguments that are being presented to people against it, I mean, there's almost 99% untrue propaganda.
Yeah. Look, the teachers union, very, very, very powerful union in the state of New Hampshire,
Yes.
does not like this bill because it gives the choice to parents and it gives them some financial help to be able to say, if I'm not happy with sending my child to this school, I now have the opportunity to say, I'm going to send them to this school or to this school or to this school. Now, you and I sit here and you go like, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, my daughter Morgan, she's 5 years old. What's wrong with me saying, I'm not really happy with the school in my town. I'm just not happy with it.
Right.
I want to take Morgan because I believe I know what's best for her, and I want to put her in this Montessori school.
Especially if she was having problems in that school,
Maybe
the local school.
Right. Maybe she is challenged. She's not, but maybe she is.
Yeah, could be many reasons.
Maybe
could be as simple as, not simple, but I don't mean to say it that way, but it could be because of bullying. It
Any
could be
number of issues.
A number of reasons.
As a parent, I want to take my kid and send her to a Montessori school. Well, I should be able to do that.
Yes.
And if what happens is now businesses are able to donate money to this nonprofit, the nonprofit who has been very, very regulated on who they can give scholarships to, and it really,
strict financial guidelines.
It's for poor families.
Yeah.
It gives poor families that opportunity because right now, a middle class and wealthy family can say, I don't care, like I'm sending my kid to St. Paul, or I'm sending my kid to New Hampshire Prep School, I'm sending my kid to any private school because I can afford it.
Right.
Well, who can't afford it? It's the poor people. It's the poor families in this state. So this nonprofit allows businesses to donate to a nonprofit. They get a tax credit, and we're able to take that money, award scholarships to these low-income families, and give them the choice that everyone else has.
But one of the things that I think is very, I guess for lack of a better word, disgusting, is that the opponents of it would like listeners to believe that, in essence, people would be getting a free private school education.
It's ridiculous.
And I mean, I guess the average grant will be something in the vicinity of $2,500 for homeschooling.
Yes.
I think the cutoff is $625 for books and
yeah.
materials and such. But I mean, what private school, even the smallest little parochial school in the smallest little town, there is no private school or charter school or whatever that the tuition is only $2,500. So obviously the parents would be digging deep into their pockets to pay the tuition.
Yes, it's a huge decision.
Yes, yes. And an expensive decision.
It's a very expensive decision. Growing up, my parents decided to send me and my 3 siblings to a private school, and it was I think it was like around $4,000 a year, $16,000 a year.
Yeah.
My parents, my mom.
Oh, that's a lot of money.
My mom volunteered and worked at the school in order to try and help us. After school, we would all get in the car and we'd go and she would clean houses. I mean, I remember going behind the station wagon. We'd go and she would clean houses. My dad worked, a number of different jobs at a time, simply because they believed that the education they were able to provide us was very, very, very important.
And it doesn't stop at just tuition, because, I mean...
It's everything.
Yeah. I mean, you do pay, maybe some schools you don't, but I mean, every school that I've known of, and my kids went through program, the tuition is one thing, but then on top of it, you pay for all of the books. You pay a fee for every club activity. You pay a fee for every sports involvement and so on. I mean, there virtually is nothing that you're not paying for.
Right.
So, you know, the cost of tuition is the starting point,
Right.
and then add a whole ton of money per year on top of that.
Here's
And it's a huge commitment for a family, because meanwhile you're still paying your real estate tax and supporting public education.
That's the thing. That
You're not
is
getting
exactly,
a break from that.
So I was just going to mention that. So everybody in town who owns property is paying their property tax.
Exactly.
A huge portion of that goes to the school. So I don't know what it is for Bedford. I know where the town that I live in, it's about $16,000 a year to educate a student.
The school budget this year and I don't, you know, this is not an exact figure, but the proposed school budget is, I believe, 66 million, and the proposed town budget for everything else is 21, I think.
Okay.
So you can see
So,
the
yeah.
huge difference between the two numbers.
I know that where I am, it's $17,000 or $16,000 a year. So let's do some math, right? $16,000 a year is what comes into the school district for a student. Well, what happens when we take a student out of that, right?
Exactly.
And all that costs now for this, and it comes out of a nonprofit, a tax credit from a nonprofit. So yes, the state does lose a very minute sliver of revenue here, a very tiny little bit.
The state takes a little bit of that aid away from the town.
And what they're only taking is, if a company donates $2,500, only the taxable portion of that would be going to the state. So we're talking about we're a very minute amount going to the state. We're now going to take $2,500 from a nonprofit and give it to that student. So what does that do with the rest of this $14,500 that went to the school district?
That's right.
What do they do with it? Well, it's their money. They pay teachers and they do all. Why are they complaining about this?
Well, you know,
We're leaving money in the pot here, and they're the ones trying to shut it down. It's
well, they complain that the state aid per kid is taken away from the town.
yeah, which is again.
But the other side of that is that we're not paying the full tilt boogie for that kid,
no, you're not.
because that kid is now out of the system.
That's right. So look.
So I mean, it's a savings for the taxpayer in reality.
It is a savings, but again, we have Democrats who have been told by their promises that they've made and by their party leadership that the unions are saying that this is a bad bill and we have to cut it. And we have to kill it.
Yeah.
If we can transition, it's a totally different
Well,
conversation.
as you know, it's already the repeal bill already passed the House.
Yes, the repeal
So
bill
I mean,
passed.
it's
We'll
all
see what
into
happens
the
in the
Senate
Senate
now. Yeah.
Yes. Along the same lines, we have a charter school moratorium. Now, charter schools are public schools. The tuition is covered by the public school system. So you're not, they're not expensive, elite type schools. And they're designed with a very specific custom curriculum to help very specific niches of students.
Yep.
There's a school up in the North Country who helps high-risk students who have already dropped out. So they've dropped out of the public school system, and they've said, what are we going to do? This charter school goes out, finds those kids, brings them in, and they have an 80% graduation rate.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't that? I think that's an
And
amazing
these are
thing.
kids who would have been lost.
Totally
for all
lost.
intents and purposes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And would be a drag on society for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
They've now got a high school degree. They're going to college. They're becoming productive members of our society. That's what they're supposed to be doing. So the charter school, there's one up north. There's one in Nashua that is specifically
science
focused
and
on
technology?
science
Yes.
and technology.
Yes.
And these kids are brought in to an environment where they are other elite students, and they're challenging each other, and they're pushing each other, and their test scores right now are off the charts. Absolutely amazing job that they're doing. And
I've heard that. I know people who have their kids in that school, and they couldn't be happier.
what this model proves to us is that charter schools, there is a place for a public-private, agreement and work.
Yeah, there is.
In education, competition works. In every other area of our life, we want competition. We don't want monopolies. But in education, a very, very, very critical piece of it, we allow the government to operate a monopoly on who's educating our children and how. Well, these charter schools are starting to break that mold. And the results are so phenomenal that you can't just ignore them. Well, we have now, as the chairman of the State Board of Education, an individual named Tom Raffio. Tom Raffio is the CEO of Delta Dental.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Do you know who the teacher unions use for their dental insurance
Delta Dental.
plans? Delta Dental. Back in the fall, Tom Raffio and the Board of Education passed a moratorium stopping all new charter school applications. There are 7 charter schools who are trying to get started.
Weren't they supposed to open in this coming
Yes,
September?
they're
and now
trying
they can't.
right now.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
trying to get started, but no.
Yeah.
Tom Raffio, who derives a significant amount of his income and his company's income from the teachers union, has said no more charter schools.
Solely coincidental, I'm sure.
I'm
right?
sure it's.
Yeah.
I wouldn't draw any conclusions from that. I'm just saying this is the facts. You know, so we have a serious problem in Concord with a lot of different areas, but a lot of it stems from, I hate to come back to it, but a lot of it comes back from this union leadership, and they are constantly, all of these different angles working. Yes, I get it, for the betterment of their own group, which is what they're supposed to do.
Well, yeah,
I understand that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have politicians who jump in bed with these people, who then become, indentured to them, that whatever they say to do, whatever it is that bill that they're supposed to fight for, they have to then go out and represent this small, select group of people instead of all of us here voting.
And what bothers me so much is the fact that misinformation is deliberately given,
of course,
to try to win their side of the issue, and that really drives me crazy.
Because the politician now goes, look, I'm forced into a position that I wouldn't normally take.
Yeah.
I have to, common sense I can't consider, rational arguments I can't consider. So somebody just tell me something that I can say to, number one, appease myself, because a lot of these state reps are really good people making these crazy decisions, but they've got to appease themselves. And second of all, they've got to tell their people in their community something. There has to be some way that they can appease these people. And so they come up with these crazy arguments. They come up with these crazy things like, oh, if you cut this, they're going to send they're going to cut off birth control to everybody. They're going to push your grandmother over the cliff. They're going to, well, look, any rational thinking person goes like, okay, that's not really going to happen. But they get into this campaign and this political rhetoric. And we have so much of this in our country today. Even at the local level, there's so much of this. And all it takes is for someone to say, look, like, let's just have an honest, open conversation about this. This is really why you're doing this. Just say, yes, I'm in bed with the unions and I have to do this because the unions told me to. Just say that.
If it's convincing enough, then we'll listen.
Don't tell us it's to save the kids. Oh, it's to save the children. No, it's not to save the children.
No, I know it's not to save the children.
So, like, let's
if it was to save the children, then the children who aren't being served would be getting the help.
Yes, I believe that the state reps owe it to their constituents to tell it like it is. To say, listen, I got elected and I got campaign contributions from members of the union, and now they are lobbying me and pressuring me and telling me that I have to vote this specific way or they're going to come after me. And I like being a state rep. I want to be involved. I want to help you guys. But I'm being pressured and being told that, this is what's going on. Why can't we have that conversation? Why can't our state reps...
I wish we could, but do you think it's ever going to happen?
I do think it will happen.
You think it will?
Yes, because tell it like it is going to force it on us. We're going to change our culture here. But look, that ultimately is where a lot of these problems are stemming from. And so hopefully...
Yeah, I don't disagree with that point of view. I really don't.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I mean, obviously, all the tax-related things are huge this year.
Yes.
But I mean, I don't know what the gun rate thing obviously is huge.
Look at see, we haven't even touched on so much stuff.
I know. And other social issues. I mean, abortion's back in the picture again.
It's going to be brought up yet again.
There are 3 or 4 abortion bills.
Yes. Yeah.
Which, frankly, I am so tired of hearing about. I can't even tell you.
Agree.
Absolutely, I mean, my entire female adult life, I've been hearing arguments about abortion.
Right.
Enough already.
Right. With such a very, very, very small sector of our society actually ever take. So it's a very, I mean, obviously it's a hot button issue. It's an issue that is used by, the left and the right both to try and sway votes.
I know.
It's a very tough thing. So a lot of that stuff just needs to be taken off the table. Like we just need to take a lot of the stuff off the table and to say, if we're going to move our state forward, let's just have an honest, open dialogue about what are the issues facing us today. Well, our economy's not in good shape.
Right.
We're not doing well.
There's too much emphasis and too much time spent on some of these social issues. Right. Truth be told, I think a good majority of us are just really tired of hearing about and
Right.
don't want to hear about.
Right, right. And we should be focusing on fixing our economy,
Exactly.
education.
Because I mean, that's the bottom line for all of us.
Right.
Being able to live and
let's
have
not
a decent standard of living, for crying out loud.
and let's not limit the ideas and our conversation simply by, well, this is what my lobbyist and my union members have told me are the only solutions. You know, why can't we? Maggie Hassan ran on a campaign of innovation. She hasn't brought any new innovation.
Not so far.
And taxing people to give money
Yeah.
to someone else to
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
oh, go
That's
innovate
not
with this money.
innovative. I
It's
mean,
not
that's
innovative.
same old, same
It's been
old.
being done for
Yeah.
hundreds of years. So,
Yeah, exactly.
so we really need to have like an innovative, discussion about, hey, what are some new ways that we can bring in? One of the things that's happening in the state is, or in the country as a whole, is in manufacturing. There is a resurgence in manufacturing. And New Hampshire is really in a very unique position if with a few legislative changes to say, we want manufacturers to come to our state. One of the problems is finding a technically savvy workforce. It's very, very difficult. If you talk to manufacturers all over the state, all of them are hiring for very specific jobs. It's very hard for them to find these people. So we just added $50 million back into the UNH to the college budget. What if we said, instead of saying, we want to send kids to college and we're willing to pay for it, and we want you to go out and get an art history degree, right? What if we said to them,
Yeah.
we want a portion of this money that we're giving to
Yeah.
you to be used for night classes
Yeah.
for adults between the ages of 35 and 55
Right.
who've
Who
been
need
laid
some
off from a
training.
job, and give them technical training.
Yep.
Because there are jobs available.
Yes, there are.
I'm in the technical field. Data analysis, data modeling, big data is where all technology is going. And there are individuals who've been laid off from jobs who would have a background in accounting, in science, in any of these things, statistics, math, who have the ability to be able to do these jobs, who have the mind and the technical ability to do these jobs. But they haven't had just a little bit of training. They need just a little bit of the gap filled.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead, we leave them on 99 weeks of unemployment. We allow them to sit there. They themselves go, look, like I've tried everything I can, and I can't do it anymore. So they give
and
up.
the longer they're out,
That's
the less
it.
chance they're getting hired.
That's it. And so why don't we use some of the monies that we're giving to the college system to do some of that stuff?
Well, I frankly don't think all that money should have been restored to UNH.
Well, I mean,
I mean, when I see their things like, how every year they'll publish, the union leader will publish page after page of all the salaries at UNH.
right.
I mean, I'm appalled every time I look at them.
It's pretty
Frankly,
amazing.
I'm appalled.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I guess I picked the wrong kind of work all my life. Because you see some of those salaries and it's like, what?
Yep. No, I know. Well, you're right. I mean, we started a conversation that weaved and
Yeah, we did.
all
We
over the
weaved
road.
all
We had a
over
lot
the
of different
place.
issues.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a lot of opportunity to look at the problems that are facing us today as a state and to say there are better ways to do this stuff if we're willing to take parties off the table, if we're willing to take our prejudices off the table, take the unions off the table, and just have an honest dialogue about how do we get from A to B. I mean, it's really that simple. And when you break it down like that and you go, let's move from A to B. That's all we're talking about today is A to B.
Yep.
When you do that, the answer's right in front of you. It's pretty simple. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, but they're not willing to do that.
Right. Well, we're going to force them to.
Well,
Gotta change it.
Well, see, that's why I like you, because
I'm a
I know
change agent.
I know you're not afraid to be a firebrand and go in and take some bullets in the process. Well, we are almost to the end of the line here, so what I'd like to do is hand it over to you
Yes.
to talk about whatever is most on your mind that you would like to kind of close out the show on.
Good. Well, I think it's a combination of a lot of things, and that is that I feel like as a Republican and looking at our party, I think that we have an opportunity going into 2014 to really start to talk about solutions to what are the problems, and I think that we need to start presenting a very positive message, because I believe that we are in a position and we stand on the right principles and values that need to come forward. That being said, we have to do a better job of using technology and messaging, reaching real people with some of these solutions. And that's how we're going to build our grassroots. It's how we're going to build up our local committees. It's how we're going to, ultimately move things forward. And going into 2014, I think we have an opportunity. I think what Maggie Hassan is doing in the House is a mistake. I think what Speaker Norelli is doing in the House is a mistake. Those two are clashing and butting heads. And I think that Republicans have to be in a position to be able to capitalize on that, be able to say, look, while they're bickering, let's talk to the people of New Hampshire about getting things done. And, that really is where I'm at. That's what I'm going to be working on. I obviously have my business, which I'm trying to run and operate, but at the same time, I really feel like it's important and it's a worthy cause to say, let's get out of all this political nonsense, and let's just try and figure out some solutions from A to B. Let's just try and get to that point. I think that's what you do on your show. I think that's why it's why it's popular and why people watch it. And hopefully we can all do that.
Well, I'll tell you, as far as I'm concerned, you're a well-needed breath of fresh air in New Hampshire. And I'm really glad that we didn't see you kind of emerge into the spotlight because you thought you'd be a great Republican committee chairman. That, you got involved because you have good ideas and you're willing to go the mark. And we need people like you.
Thank you.
And I hope you're going to continue to recruit people like you, too.
I am.
All right. Well, listen, it was great having you back, and I'm planning on having you as a regular.
I will be here.
I don't know. Maybe we'll have some badges made up for regular participants or something,
There you go.
And you'll get a special
I
cup.
could like a name plaque.
Yeah,
right here.
we could do that.
Yeah,
Something a little special, a medallion, some little thing.
Good. I
All
look
right.
forward
Well,
to it.
thanks for coming down.
Thank you, Kathy,
Thank
very
you.
much.
Well, again, another fascinating show, and this time instead of just talking about, the Republican Party committee, we're able to talk to Andrew about all kinds of issues that are important to all of us in New Hampshire, and you'll get to hear him again really soon. So, thanks for watching. We do try to tell you it like it is, and hope you're doing the same. Until next time, bye-bye.